This video is the ultimate guide to using vocal chops in your beats. I'm going to show you how to use vocal chops so they don't get in the way of artists, so they sound atmospheric and beautiful, and so people want to buy your beats. But before we steal Earthquake powers from the realest pirate on the seas, I got a question for you. That question is, what is the best VST for getting fire vocal chops? Leave your answer down below. If you don't know, don't worry, because I'll be revealing the answer later on in the video. Just stay tuned. Let's get into it. First thing you've got to do is make sure your vocal chop is in the right key of the rest of your beat. Now, you can do this in a few ways. I personally use auto key, but you can use tunebat.com/analyzer. That's a free online version, or you can use Edison's pitch detect. I'm not gonna go super deep into how to actually do this. I did go deep into how to do this in my video on how to make a loop from scratch. So if you wanna see that in action, go watch that video. It might be out by the time you're watching this, maybe not. However, in this video, I'm gonna be using Arcade, which is really easy to set the right key. Let me show you how that's done. We're gonna go and pick a kit. Let's listen to a few and see what we got.
Thinking about you, ooh, ooh, yeah, 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 ooh, 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 wish I had you all along. I need you in my world. Ooh, do, 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 do. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh.
This sounds cool enough. And down here at the bottom right hand corner, you can change the actual key. But first of all, we need to go and check what key our main pattern is in. So let me go and check this out. This is in G minor. So we'll change this to G minor down here. We'll click minor, G minor. And this little padlock will lock our session to G minor. So if we change this to any different kit, it's all going to be in G minor.
I need you with everything I should have done. Wish I had you all along. Don't leave me now. Everything I should have done. Wish I had you all along.
If you're using audio vocal chops, then you can transpose those to also be in the key of your beat. Watch my video on how to transpose audio if you don't know how to do that already. Second step, now you've got your vocal chop in the right key, you're ready to move to the next step. The second step is sequencing. This is key. If you get this wrong, your vocal chop can get in the way of the artist and become very, very annoying, very fast. A rule I like to follow is to not have more than 6 vocal chops per 4-bar loop. Like so, this would count as a 4-bar loop even though it says it's an 8-bar loop because we're in double time. Usually I'll add about 4 vocal chops, sometimes 5. Usually I won't hit that 6, but definitely do not go over that because that is just too much. It's too much going on too constantly. It's not going to turn out well. Let's create a simple vocal chop pattern right now. So I'm going to create this and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you what's up. Before we do that, let me quickly play you the example melody that we've got going on in the background so you can see what we're working with. Let's actually bring this down. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vocal chops. These vocal chops are exactly the same. I like to have the first vocal chop be the same and then change up the latter half of the bar. So this would be 2 bars and then this would be 2 bars. So the first bar the same, second bar change up. And then we've got a small change from this one to this one. And the second half, we got this. But this first one is pretty easy to just get into and start the vocal chops. Very easy, not going to get in the way a lot. Stuff that's like singing vocal melodies, something like this.
I need you in my world.
With actual words can still be used, but it's just going to be way easier if you just pick something that's just melodic like this. It's just going to be easier to have in the background and it's not going to get in the way as much. Although, do what you want as long as it sounds good, okay? Now, I'm going to go in depth mildly a little bit on where I've put these vocal chops and why, so that you have some kind of idea of how to sequence your own vocal chops, and this will help you out a lot. Now, we didn't hit on the first bar because that generally just doesn't sound good to me personally. Generally, you want to give your beat a little bit of space before the vocal chops start coming in. Some beats, it'll be different. But for this one, we're hitting on the half of this bar here. We're just going to pretend that this is an 8 bar, even though it's not, because it's, you know, a 4 bar loop in double time. But half of this bar is where we're starting, and then we're starting on half of the 3rd bar here. Sometimes I'll start at the beginning of the 4th bar here, but this will generally be where I start. I'll start halfway here or right over here, depending on the beat. And then we'll start either halfway here or at the beginning of the 4th bar, and we'll do the same thing over here. So that's the kind of rhythm you want to go for, and that generally works out pretty well for me. You can try out other things if you want to, but know that this works, and I suggest you start with what works before you start experimenting. Go with what works, master that, then experiment, okay? Now we have our vocal pattern, it's time to start making this sound fire. The most important thing is to have the vocal chop in the background of the beat. We want to enhance the song, not make the vocal chop the main event. Right about now, it's too loud, it's too prominent, it's too much in your face. And if the vocal chop is too prominent, the artist won't have enough space to actually perform on the song. That's bad. So let's start processing. Now the first effect we'll add is EQ, but let me move this to my actual channel where I do all my vocal chop processing. This is my loop making template. Link to this might be down below, but I believe I've got most of the same kind of stuff on in my other beat making templates. So if you want to grab those, it's going to help you out a lot. Now, this is the EQ that we start off with. Simple band pass. This basically takes out lows, so we're not getting in the way of the bass, and takes out the highs so that it doesn't sound too high and it doesn't sound too prominent. Let's listen back to this with, yeah, just the EQ, and we'll turn on the effects over here. Now, what I would do at this point is I'll just make this a lot stricter, and then we'll bring this down a few decibels and listen back. Already moved it into the background way more, and it's become more subtle, out of the way, so the vocal performer has more space and it's less distracting and they can actually perform. If you want to learn how to make your own beats from scratch, you can use my easy 9-step trap beat making formula. All you need to do is click on the link down below or go to jcarterray.com/free trap course. This free course will take you from creating your melody all the way to mastering your beat, and it's absolutely free, so there's nothing to lose except for the opportunity to join this course while it's still free and available. It won't be free and available forever, so join now, link down below. Let's get back into the video. Step number 4 is the next effect. We're gonna add on some reverb. Now I add 7th Heaven reverb. I've been using this only for my vocal chops, to be honest, for a very long time, and I use this exact same preset every time. London plate with these seconds on the pre-delay. I believe this is pre-delay, and this mix, and this is what it does to the vocal chop. Now you can use whatever reverb you have available and tweak it to your taste. Make it subtle but super wet. I highly suggest that. Make sure it's super wet. Make sure it's super wet before you move on to the next step. Oh my God. I'm sure that could be said in many different contexts. Anyways, the next thing you want to do is actually bounce this audio. So I'm going to silence everything else and solo the vocal chop track by pressing right click. And then we're going to select this, press Control Alt and C, and we're going to bounce this into a WAV. Let's quickly listen back to this. Now at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to pitch it down all the way, send it back to our vocal channel with our EQ, and turn off the reverb. And then we also want to normalize it as well, so we've got more control over the volume. And listen back. Now this end part is so low. I really would want this to be a little bit higher. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add a compressor to bring everything to about the same level. Another thing I could do is just chop this up and just raise the level of that specific part by creating a unique audio file, but we're not gonna do that right now. We're just gonna see where that's hitting. It's hitting about 30. Let's actually bring it all the way back to be where, well, let's just leave it up actually. And we're gonna go to minus 30. Let's actually give it to 7. Let's go to 10. And let's bring the threshold down to like 39. That's near enough where we want it to be, so I'm gonna bounce this one more time. Well, let's not say one more time, I might need to bounce it again. Let's bounce this down, and then we're gonna normalize this and send it back to our vocal chop thing. That's much better. We could have done that compressor. Oh, we just compressed it again by accident. That is giving us a bit of a tail of the reverb, but it's going to be in the background so much that I don't think it's going to get in the way of what we need to do. The next thing we want to do is add Little Alter Boy, and we're going to use the preset Octave Higher. So let's open this up. I think this should already have the preset we need. Yeah, High Octave Double, that's the name of the preset. These are the settings, and listen back, this is what we get. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to bounce this down again. Reason we're doing this is because we don't want to have to keep on any of these effects, especially Little Alter Boy, because it really tanks our CPU, and we don't want to be using that if we don't need to. So let's normalize this, set the declicking mode to generic, set this back to vocal chop, and then turn off the effects. And this is what we get. And we can turn this down. And we can turn this down even more. And right click this so this isn't soloed anymore, and we can hear everything else. That sounds like that's too high pitched. What's going on? Did I bring this down? I did bring it down an octave, so why does it still sound so high? So we could bring this up a little bit. And and when we master everything or normalize it all together, everything will be louder, so everything will be a little bit clearer. But that's the basics. Now you have an atmospheric vocal chop that sits in the background of your beat and gives it a little extra pinch of spice. And I'm a man of my word, so let me answer that question that I asked you earlier. That question was, what's the best VST for getting fire vocal samples? If you watch the video, you know what it is. It's Arcade. That's what I suggest. Although you might not want to get it because it has a subscription service, but they're always adding new lines, new kits, and all that sort of stuff. I think it's totally invaluable. Get it if you can. It's great stuff. Arcade, get it. Let's quickly recap. First thing you probably want to do is get my beat making template, because it's just going to make everything easier. It's going to have everything set up so that you don't need to do this manually. But if you want to do it manually, first thing you need to do is get a good vocal chop. Make sure it's in the right key, transpose it to the right key if it's not in the right key, then sequence it. Make sure you're not using more than 6 per 4 bars, like 6 vocal chops per 4 bars. Any more than that, it's going to be too much. Then you want to add the EQ, a bandpass EQ, get rid of the highs and lows, bring it down a little bit so it really smooths out the vocal chop and makes it more subtle and in the background. Next, you want to add reverb to kind of make it sound a little bit more lush and more in the background. Then you bounce the audio, pitch it down, send it back to the channel, turn off reverb, keep on the EQ, add little alter boy, do some compression if you need to do it. You won't always need to do compression, so I haven't added that in the actual notes, but sometimes it needs to be done like you just saw in the video. After you add the little alter boy, the higher octave, then you want to bounce it down again, turn off all the effects, send it back to the channel. Bob's your uncle, you've got a great vocal chop. Remember, it's supposed to sit in the background, not supposed to hit you in the face. If you've got any questions or any other tutorials you want me to make, please let me know in the comment section down below. Check out that video next, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.